Working a lot in the shop as far as the setup and how things are. Being in a small garage shop, size matters. Spacing is such an issue all the time. So what I've done is I've put in a dust collection system to eliminate some of the mess and the dust. And I wanted to show you real quick what I did here because I did chat with people online and look at forums and do a lot of reading on the matter for a small shop. So I'm going to show you what I did in this little garage. So when I decided I wanted to put in a dust collection system, I knew space was going to be my biggest factor. Being in a two-car garage, I've got all these cabinets on the side. I knew that I couldn't just have one sitting somewhere because it would take up too much space. My first thought was to go to the attic. I spent probably half a day where I took apart my dust collector, trying to get it up the stairs or up the ladder into the attic and fit it just right, and I just couldn't work it out. So after really wanting to do that, I ended up scrapping that plan. So the collector I opted for was the Harbor Freight, I believe it's the Central Machinery 2-horse 60-gallon. The reason I chose that one, I found one on Craigslist for a steal of a deal. It was brand new. First thing I did after I decided I couldn't go in the attic, I disassembled the whole thing to mount it sideways on the wall, kind of in this corner where the cabinet is. And basically the setup is this. I've got a 35-gallon drum where I built a collector separator top, which runs into the collector here, the intake. That runs into the 5-inch tube here that goes into this first cabinet. So in this first cabinet, I went ahead and mounted the separator, bag, and filter bag that come with the collector. So you can see the intake and motor are here. It runs into this first cabinet where I have the collector bag and filter bag. This kind of keeps it out of my way as far as the spacing. It was the least amount of space I could use for this system. So here's my collection barrel. That's a 35-gallon. I built the dust separator top. I forget what it's called, but it's there's a million plans online for it. That connects right to the pump housing down below right here, where that runs into the filter and separator from the dust collector. Now what draws all this in is this first silver hose going into the black PVC. That's 3-inch. It runs up across here and down the center of the garage. Now you might be wondering, why didn't I run it to the roof? Well, I'm in a garage and I needed to allow for the garage door to open. So I actually came all the way to the front here. This is the only thing I have not connected yet. This will connect to my table saw right below here, and that has a gate on it, and that will run into the rest of the system here. Now this worked out really well. I built just these simple hangers, 3 of them, to hang the system from the roof. Made sure I mounted into beams in the ceiling, and that worked out pretty well. The only thing I have to do now is reevaluate my setup here, where I had this shelf. Now the hose is kind of in the way, but the convenience of having the gates here, you know, quick and easy for all of these, made it worthwhile and made it worth relocating some of this other stuff and the other equipment. So this system works pretty easy and pretty efficiently, I believe, for being such a small space. I went ahead and installed this little remote on-off switch that I actually picked up on Amazon last year, the year before, for I think like 20 bucks. My dust collector's plugged into that. I usually keep this in my pocket when I'm out here in the shop. I can walk up, open a gate, hit the button, and turn on the system. As soon as I'm done, hit the other button, turn it off. It saves me some time and effort to off and on everything. One other thing I wanted to show you was these joints and how I installed the gates here. It's very simple. The PVC to this gate, which I picked up at Woodcraft, just didn't fit. There was nothing, no coupler or anything that I could use to mesh it. So what I did was I duct taped it together, which was nice because it held it in place and it gave me a seal. Then I sliced up some scrap PVC. I cut it into 4 quarters, put that on, duct taped on that just to hold it in place, and then put a clamp over that. And these joints are solid, they're tough. and they make a nice seal on the system. So I've actually done that on all my joints just because, you know, necessity. And it worked out pretty well. Even got one up here on the table saw gate. So the last thing I did, and I'm probably not ever going to be done doing this because I'll always think of some better way to do it, is I made these little dust collection frames, or whatever you want to call them. And I built these based on what I do the most. I do a lot of pen making, so as you can see, this one, my pen vise will fit right in here and collect there. It's amazing how much it actually collects. I'd say from just a little bit I've got to use it since I finished the install, I bet it collects 95% of the chips, the big stuff, and probably better than that on the dust, probably 99% of the dust, because it actually has a real good suction by building this little square. Let me show you what I did on the lathe. Now the lathe collector is actually even simpler. I just used this simple fitting that I got at Woodcraft, and I think this is for a router table or some other application. Built this little stand, and the reason I had to build a stand is to go over my rest here. If I had it flush on there, as you can see, it wouldn't fit. So what I've done, let me back this off here, is I built this to go over the rest and sit on the bed of the lathe, and I just did that by epoxying some magnets into the bottom here. And this actually has worked out amazing. I turned all last night for many hours, and this is the amount of dust that I have left sitting here. Typically I would have just piles of dust all the way to the ground, and you can see it actually is fairly clean. So this little cup system here, little shelf, I could have extended that out a little bit, but this gives me full motion with the rest to go in and out as it's needed. But this is amazing how much, going from no dust collector to a dust collector, how much goes up here. All the strings, when you're turning acrylics that come off, they just suck right up as they're going, so you never have them in your way, which is also, you know, on top of the cleanliness aspect, it's a huge benefit for being able to see your work constantly and not getting those ribbons of acrylic all over the place. So that's how I did my dust collection in my little two-car garage shop. Thanks to anyone who gave advice on the forums. It really did help out, and it's always helpful to see other people's setups. I probably looked at 100 different setups that people posted, and there's some amazing ideas out there. So if you're going to do something like this for yourself, definitely spend some time looking around and seeing what will work best for your space. The way I set up my collector and separator in a cabinet and you know, turn the motor sideways, I hadn't seen that before. It worked well here, so that's why I did it. Thanks for watching.